This One's Wife. Dr. Chandauka versus Meghan Markle. It started at the Polo. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. In what is starting to appear like something of a soap opera surrounding Sentebale, allegations and counter-allegations have been flying thick and fast between Dr. Sophie Chandauka and the trustees who resigned en masse. But who is she? Well, to put you in the picture and provide you with a brief overview of the type of individual that she is, Sophie Chandauka is a Zimbabwe-born corporate finance lawyer. She's an entrepreneur and head of America's risk management and intelligence at Meta. So evidently, an intelligent and capable woman. She previously worked as Global Chief Operations Officer of Shared Services and Banking Operations at Morgan Stanley and as Head of Group Treasury at Virgin Money. In the 2021 Queen's Birthday Honours, Chandauka was awarded an MBE for services to diversity in business. She was appointed to the Board of Trustees at Sentebale in 2008. She also served as co-chair of the Board of Trustees. He was appointed to the Board of Trustees Association of Development Lawyers who provide access to law for impoverished and marginalized communities. Leaving aside what you might think about her behaviours, or what is alleged with regard to her behaviours, it's evident that she is a capable lady that became a lawyer and has held high-up positions at substantial organisations whilst being involved in charity work also. She has been forthright and certainly has not been backward about coming forward with her observations about Harry and also this one's wife. And it would appear that the catalyst for all of this was at the Polo. Yes. Once again, the behaviour of this one's wife proved such that a particular individual was less than impressed by it and what she was expected to do thereafter. We know this one's wife loves inserting herself in the centre of things when it comes to awards. She purchases them for herself, and where awards are being given, she needs to ensure that she is front and centre. You may recall my parody of her as a clapping seal when she basically stood underneath the trophy and tried to take a box away from one of the Polo players. This is because of her narcissism. She needs to control those around her, which also includes managing that facade so that she is seen, that she is the centre of attention. She has no real manners. She lacks decorum because she doesn't come from this world to begin with, and her narcissism hasn't learned, despite her time in the royal family, as to how she ought to conduct herself. You've seen so many instances of where she just simply can't behave herself. Think, for instance, when she was on the balcony at Buckingham Palace whilst the national anthem was being played. She kept turning her back to the Queen, which is something you ought not to do, and she got told off twice by Harry. See parts passim. Thus, it's once again an instance of her unable to conduct herself in an appropriate fashion because her narcissism seeks to make it all about her. And this is what appears to have been the catalyst for the fallout. First of all, let's have a look at some video footage of this one's wife when she was presenting a trophy at Sentebale back in 2018. Here was this one's wife involved in the prize giving, the trophy awarding, at Sentebale back in 2018. You'll see that she strolls across the turf towards where the two teams are waiting for her. And then it's time to present the trophy. Now, quite why she's presenting it is anybody's guess. After all, she's not involved with Sentebale. It isn't the charity, it's her husband's charity. But still, naturally, this one's wife needs to be at the centre of things. And there she is, goes up on the stage with a gentleman, posed for a photograph, naturally, and she walks across to position herself at the centre of the 3-man and 1-woman team, presumably the winners of the polo match, the other team having moved off to the side. And I think that's Nacho Figueras, and accordingly it's a kiss for Nacho, and handing over the trophy to him, a kiss for Harry, and shaking hands with the other man, whilst the woman is ignored. Well, that's unsurprising. Nothing particularly controversial about this, but once again, this one's wife's narcissism on display, as she has to ensure that she's, 1, involved in something which isn't anything to do with her, 2, she has to be photographed and seen, 3, she has to be at the centre of things, and 4, that she involves herself with the men whilst ignoring the female member of the team, which is typical for a narcissist such as this one's wife, who claims that she empowers women and young girls, but is really all about utilising men in a variety of different ways to advance herself. But that all passed off relatively peacefully, without too much controversy, and then we moved to the trophy presentation that took place in 2024. Now, I have analysed this previously, but in light of recent allegations, this is worth revisiting. Let's have a look at this piece of footage.
Thank you very much. For putting on such a great day here at the Polo Club. Again, a big thank you to all of those who provided horses.
Another trophy presentation, and lo and behold, there's this one's wife who's managed to inveigle her way into it. We have Harry. It's entirely understandable that he's there on the stage. He's played polo, and he's involved with Sentebale as a patron. Makes perfect sense for him to be there. Dr. Sophie Chandauka is there because she is the chair of Sentebale. So, makes perfect sense why she's there. I'm not sure who the other lady is, but with this one's wife, why is she there? She hasn't played polo. She's not involved with Sentebale. But naturally, she has to muscle her way in because her narcissism demands it. She can't just allow Harry to do this himself. Oh no. She has to piggyback it because, as she has throughout her life, she has taken the achievements of other people and utilised them for her own purposes. Accordingly, her narcissism directs her to be involved in this so it can be filmed and photographed so she can then assert control over the audience and the wider viewership and readership. She draws fuel from the responses. She wants to be associated with the charity, even though it's nothing actually to do with her, because that's part of the residual benefit of a facade management. With those sharpened elbows, driven by her sense of entitlement and no accountability for her behaviour, an absence of emotional empathy, she once again inserts herself in a scene which has nothing to do with her. But it's worse than that. As I've explained in the past, what we then see is that this one's wife is asserting physical control over Harry by wrapping her arm around him. And as Dr. Chandauka looks to get in on the picture also, standing next to Harry, that's a threat to the control of this one's wife. So she then starts to instruct her, come and stand over here, and forces Dr. Chandauka to have to limbo underneath the trophy so that she can't stand next to Harry. Now, there's no suggestion of there being any kind of hanky-panky between Dr. Chandauka and the Prince of Pink Pancakes, but naturally, this one's wife regards the presence of this lady as a threat to her control, which also demonstrates that so much for supporting fellow women and also a fellow person of colour, although, of course, stood side by side, you would note a particular difference between the two of them. This one's wife, with her high-handed arrogance, engages in pointing to the capable lawyer who's involved in various organisations. You go and stand over there. Don't stand next to my husband. Not only is it rude, But it also demonstrates the lack of grace exhibited by this one's wife and how she behaves in public, in certain situations, bossing people around. Another example of how her narcissism hasn't learned how she ought to really conduct herself in public. Many people wouldn't necessarily pick up on it. However, now you know that she's a narcissist, you can see that the presence of another woman stood next to her husband is a threat to her need for control, and therefore her narcissism drives her to assert control over Dr. Chandauka by basically bossing her around. Dr. Chandauka would have been well within her right to say, "I'm sorry, what are you doing on the stage? You're nothing to do with Sentebale," but was presumably too polite to turn around and actually say anything to this one's wife. So what we see is another instance of this one's wife causing a problem. And this is how it all started. Because following this one's wife received negative comments and criticisms of her behaviour across the press and social media. We're now in 2024 when this happened, so people have had years of observing the way that this one's wife conducts herself and are unimpressed with the way that she behaves, and furthermore have repeatedly criticised her, and therefore it's yet more grist to the mill. The fact that she engages in this behaviour is picked up on by many people, and she's criticised across social media and mainstream media. And as a consequence of this, Harry made it known to Dr. Chandauka that he wanted her to defend this one's wife. Now, this shows the dim-wittedness, once again, of Harry and how he's driven by his emotional thinking, and it is quite common for the victim of a narcissist, and here a particularly dumb one, to engage in defending the wrongdoer rather than realising that his wife was in the wrong. It could possibly be that he does recognise that his wife's out of order, but of course, behind closed doors, he gets the devaluation and the tongue lashing, and therefore he's forced by her. I have witnessed this many times with victims of narcissists who know that the narcissist is in the wrong, but they still feel compelled to defend them, particularly with regard to friends and family, because if they don't, life isn't worth living for them because of the devaluing behaviour that they will receive. Accordingly, from Harry's perspective, he's either gone along with the diktats and demands of his wife, or he's voluntarily defended his wife, which is a possibility given the fact that he's such an arrogant dunderhead at times. Nevertheless, as the Financial Times reported, the origins of the dispute have been highly contested by both sides. Chandauka said she first felt tension between Prince Harry and herself in April 2024. Chandauka said she had refused what she described as a request by the royals team to defend his wife, this one's wife, in the media after negative coverage of her. I said, no, we're not setting a precedent by which we become an extension of the Sussex PR machine, she said. Accordingly, this one's wife bosses her around at the Polo trophy presentation. This one's wife is in the wrong. The public and the press criticised this one's wife, and therefore to try and nullify that threat to control, this one's wife wants it made known, and to cause it to happen, that Dr. Chandauka apologises and defends her. This, naturally, is indicative of the prescriptive and demanding nature of the narcissist, and Dr. Chandauka stood her ground and said, no, I'm not setting a precedent. I'm not becoming an extension of the Sussex PR machine. I'm not defending your wife. And she will see that her having drawn a line in the sand to say, hang on a second, I'm the chair of this charity. I'm not here to make you and your wife look good. That would have not gone down well with the Sussexes. But who started it first? It was, as ever, this one's wife. Her high-handed behaviour at the Polo, as you've just seen in video evidence. This isn't a rumour. This isn't speculation. It was filmed evidence that shows that this one's wife, who shouldn't even have been there, is bossing around the chair of the charity. Her behaviour was out of order. It's indefensible. And yet, and it's no surprise, when she's criticised, which becomes a threat to her control, this one's wife has to ensure that's nullified, and her route to doing so is to call upon Chandauka through Harry to defend her, once again showing her arrogance, how she sees people as an extension of herself, her sense of entitlement, and Chandauka says no, which then naturally marks her as a problem in the eyes of this one's wife and also Harry, which then of course has led to a further rift between them. It's interesting to see that clear video evidence of this one's wife being in the wrong is the catalyst for the rift that occurred. Once again, the collateral consequences of this one's wife's behaviour caused problems. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for watching.